Good evening, class, and welcome to our performance management class for this evening. We are still discussing variance analysis. That's our subject of focus. And in part one and part two, we talked about the, in part one specifically, we talked about standard costing, how we set our standards and how we use our standards to build on budgets. Then in part two, we talked about the um, variances. We talked about the cost variances, which are direct costs, direct material costs, which is broken down into two, which is direct material price variance and direct material usage variance. Then we talked about how we derive that variance. We talked about direct labor variance, which we said we derive from direct material variance by just changing the quantity to hours and the price to rate. And we can break down direct labor variance into um, efficiency variance and rate variance. Then we now talked about variable production overhead variable variable production overhead variance, which can be broken down into two, into efficiency variance and expenditure variance. And we said it is the same thing with the direct labor variance, the same kind of variance, just the name changes. Then we talked about the fixed overhead variance, and we looked at the volume variance and the capacity variance. And now the volume variance can be divided into two, which is efficiency, which is um, efficiency and okay, there's capacity and expenditure variance, volume and expenditure variance. So the volume variance is divided into two, which is efficiency and capacity, and we saw how we can derive them. All right. We can also look at the summary of the variances here, how we can derive them. So we'll be looking at them from time to time, how we can derive them. So we will still also look at them again, how we can derive these variances. I will demonstrate. So in part three, yes, in part three, we looked at fixed variances. So we said it is expenditure and volume. So we will now attempt to create all these variances once again. We are in part four. So this is performance management variance analysis part four. So this is performance management. This is variance analysis part four. So we want to derive these variances once more again. So first of all, here we have our standards versus actuals. Okay, so if the standard, if for cost, I'll say for cost, if standard is greater than actual, it will be favorable. If standard less than actual, it will be adverse. Then we'll do opposite here. For sales, if standard greater than actual, it is adverse. If standard less than actual, favorable. So we have the standard versus actuals. So this is, we now say this is direct material variances. So we said standard versus actual, right? So we start with standard quantity, standard price. Then we have actual quantity, actual price. In the middle sits actual quantity, standard price. So that's the thing we need to first know. Then the direct material variance, which is the total variance, is you are going to take standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. And this is broken down into, when we take these two will give us usage, these two will give us price. So if we have direct material usage variance, it is standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, standard price. Then if we have direct material price variance, it is actual quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. And that's for, then we can also say direct material variance is equal to direct material usage variance plus direct material price variance. Now that we have done with material variance, we go into direct labor variance. So this is direct labor variances. Of course, we have our actual, standard, and actual. So we'll change it to standard, instead of standard quantity, to be standard hours, standard rates. Of course, we have actual as actual rates. In the middle, like we did before, sits actual as standard rate. So the hours have been changed, the quantity has been changed to hours, the rate, the price has been changed to rate. So in between here, instead of usage, we have efficiency. Then here, instead of price, we have rate. So we now have direct labor variance, which is the same thing as, you can still say, direct labor efficiency variance plus direct labor rate variance. So we can also say direct labor variance is the same thing as standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, actual rate. And this can be divided into direct labor efficiency variance, which is standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, standard rate. And it can also be direct labor rate variance, which is actual hours, standard rate minus actual hours, actual rate. Then this direct labor is done. Then the next thing is production overhead variance. Okay, production variable production overhead variance. I'll put variable here. Variable production overhead variance. So it is the same thing we have in direct labor, we put in variable overhead. So we have our standard hours, standard rate, actual hours, actual rate. So the center sits actual hours, standard rate. So what do we do? This here in labor, we had efficiency. So in the same case, we still have efficiency. Now here in direct labor, we had rate. So here it changes to expenditure. So what it means here is variable production overhead, variable production overhead variance is equal to variable production overhead efficiency variance plus variable production overhead expenditure variance. So we have variable production overhead variance, just the same thing with direct labor variance. Standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, actual rate. This can be broken down into variable production overhead efficiency variance, which is standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, standard rate. And variable production overhead expenditure variance, which is actual hours, standard rate minus actual hours, actual rate. Variable production overhead is done. We will now go to fixed production overhead overhead variances. Fixed overhead variances, we will still have our standard as standard rate. Then we'll have our actual as actual rate. Then instead of one thing, two things will be added. Now, just the way we did in variable production overhead. This thing will still be there. So, but I'll put it down here. Actual as standard rate. So this now looks like production overhead. But the next thing we'll do here is budgeted as standard rate. Budgeted as standard rate. So that's what we have here. Okay, that's what we have here. Very good. So, and I said we will still have here this, just like as we have variable overhead, and here was efficiency. So here is efficiency, because here will still be expenditure. Now between expenditure and efficiency sits capacity. Sits your capacity. That's one. This between here and here sits your, sorry, okay. This is what I wanted to do here. So just here, between here and here is your volume variance, and between here and here is your expenditure. Stay the same thing. And so your fixed overhead production, fixed production. So this fixed production overhead variance is the same thing as volume, the same thing as fixed production overhead volume variance plus fixed production overhead expenditure variance. Now, this can also be divided into fixed production overhead efficiency variance plus fixed production overhead capacity variance plus fixed production overhead expenditure variance. So we know that we need to do them this way. So fixed production overhead expend efficiency variance is going to give us standard hours standard rate minus actual hours standard rate. Now the capacity is going to give us fixed production overhead capacity variance is going to give us actual hours standard rate minus budgeted hours standard rate. Now the fixed production overhead expenditure variance is going to give us budgeted hours standard rate minus actual hours actual rate. So when you add all of these together, you're getting your fixed overhead variances. Then we talk about the sales variances. We say sales variances. And things get a little different. We now have our actuals. We have our standard. So We will start with sales price variance, which is actual quantity price minus actual quantity standard price. That's your sales price variance. So this is price. Then we have sales volume. Maybe I should write it completely. So this is sales price variance. This is sales volume variance. We now say it has to do with your selling contribution margin or profit margin. So we say standard profit margin all over actual quantity minus standard quantity. So let's see it here. Let's see. I think we did that. Yes. Okay, budgeted quantity. Budgeted quantity. So we say budgeted quantity. So let's use budgeted quantity. Okay, so that's it. Budgeted quantity. Then we can also say this is SPM is standard profit margin. Then it can also be in terms of marginal costing, it can be standard contribution margin. So where CSM is standard contribution margin. Right? And so that's it. Then we now said reconciliation. Reconciliation, you will start with the budgeted profit. Then you will bring the sales price variance, sales volume variance, add them, get something. Then you bring your costs variances. So you have the favorable, you have the adverse, bring them together. Then all you next is actual profit. So that's the results. So this is the summary of part one, part two, and part three. Now we'll be looking at questions now, looking at questions and how we can tackle them. Let's take one question. We look at 2017 November, question number one. So let's look at, let's see, November 2017. question number one. It's going to open in a moment. Loading in a moment. Something is not responding, so just give it a while, it will respond. It's loading. So we're looking at question number one. Wow. I would like to skip this particular question for now. The reason being that some has, some people have said that variance is tough for them now. So let me check an easy question, then we'll gradually come to a difficult question. Let's go to November 2015, question 5. November 2015, question number 5. I hope the question is not advanced variance. In case we still skip it. Okay. All right. Kumere Limited operates a standard costing system. So we are doing November 2015, question number 5. So this is, I can ask question November 2015, question 5. So what's the name of the company? Kumere Limited. So we take it into consideration. Kumere Limited. And let's go straight to what we are required to do. We are required to calculate all relevant variances. So computation of variances. Okay, so what do? We go back to the question. So how they give us a variance analysis question is this. They will bring the standard, they will tell you about the budget, then they give you the actuals. All right. Commercial Limited operates a standard costing system. The standard cost information is presented in the standard cost card below. Now, when they tell you standard, it means they are telling you per unit, per unit, per unit. All right? So that is what they are telling you. Now, in the product, they need direct material A. 1 unit takes 20 kg. 1 kg is 100 naira. So it means that 1 unit of material A will be requiring 2,000 naira cost. For material B, 30 kg at 80 naira give us 2,400. Now, direct labor, we have 10 skilled laborers, 10 unskilled laborers. Okay, skilled and unskilled, we need 10 hours rather, and 40 and 25 naira per hour. Then variable overhead, we have them. Then actual results, we have um, direct materials, and we have direct labor, we have variable overhead, is the amount. Actual production is 4,800 units. So now let's calculate the relevant variances. So we will start with direct material variances. So the first one is usage, usage variance. And we said direct material usage variance is standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, standard price. All right. So what is the standard quantity for direct material A? So you come here, direct material A. So you now say material A. What is the standard quantity here? Standard quantity is 20 kilogram. 20 kilogram. So 20 kg. How many units was produced? 4,800 units were produced. So 4,800 units were produced. What is the standard price for 1 kg? Standard price for 1 kg here is 100 naira. So this is 100 naira. Now, this is on the one hand. Now, actual quantity, what is the actual quantity of material that was used? Actual quantity of material that was consumed. So because this is usage, actual quantity of material that was consumed is 99,000 kg. So this is 99,000 kg was consumed. The standard price is 100 naira. All right, so what would that give us? This would mean 20 times 48 times 100. That gives us 9,600,000. So this is 9,600,000 minus, this is 99,000 multiplied by 100. This is 9,900,000. So this is 9,900,000. So 600 minus 900, of course, we know is 300. 300,000. And it's going to be adverse because this, of course, is smaller than this one here. So material A, we have 300 adverse. Okay? Then we go to material B. Material B. Now, standard quantity for material B happens to be 30 kg, 30 kg. So this is 30 kg. We produce 4,800 units. The standard price for 1 kg happens to be 80 naira. That's 80 naira. Now, versus how many was consumed, because this is usage variance. 144,000 was consumed. 144,000 kg consumed. So this is going to give us, we activate our calculator again, 30 multiplied by 4,800 multiplied by 80. That gives us 11,000, 11,520, 11,520, 11,520 minus, I'm also guessing this is also 11,520, 144,000 times 80, 11,520. So this is 11,520. So the variance is 0. So you cannot call it adverse, neither can it be called favorable. This is 0. Then we have done with usage. So what we just did now is usage variance. And let's go to price variance. Go to price variance. This is price variance. Because this price variance, we know that price variance is going to be actual quantity standard price minus actual quantity actual price. So that's the formula. So when you can quote the formulas, then you are good to go. So what do we do? Say material A, actual quantity of material A that was purchased, actual quantity that was purchased. You know, in usage we use consumed, in price we use purchased. 105,000. So this is 105,000 kg multiplied by what is the standard price per kg. Standard price is 100 naira. So we have at 100 naira. This is on the one hand. What is the actual quantity, actual price? You just take this directly. 10,290,000. So we take it directly. 10,290,000. All right. So what happened here? So of course we still put our 10,290,000 down. Now let's bring this one down. 10, sorry, 105,000 multiplied by 100. That gives us 10,500,000. So this is 10,500,000 minus 10,290,000. This is supposed to give us a favorable variance. So this is 10,500,000 minus 10,290,000. That gives us 210,000 variance. 210,000 favorable. Okay, then we'll do for material B. Start with material B. What is the quantity purchased? Actual quantity purchased 148,000 kilogram. 148,000 kg multiplied by, because we knew it's 80 naira. From here, 80 naira per kilogram, and spent 11,988,000. Spent 11,988,000. Of course, this still gives us 11,988,000. Tidy up this one here. We have 148,000 multiplied by 80. So that gives us 11,840,000. 11,000,000, 11,840,000. So let's see what the variance minus 11,980,000. Sorry, 988. Maybe sure it's 988. 11,988 is fine. So that gives us 148 adverts. 148 adverts. 148,000 adverts. All right, so we are done with material, direct material variances. The next one is direct labor variances. We know direct labor variances are two. Okay, but if you want to still add the two variances, you can, but no point. We just calculate them separately. Or instead of doing the total variance is better, we break them down to their components. So direct labor variances, we have um, efficiency. We have efficiency variance, which is just the same thing as usage variance. All we are doing is we are going to say standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, standard rate. Okay, so we are going to look at the efficiency variances now. We have two grades of labor, skilled and unskilled. So we are going to take them into two. Skilled, skilled labor. We now say, what is the standard hours for the skilled labor? The standard hours here is 10 hours per unit, isn't it? 10 hours per unit. So what we do now is, this is 10 hours per unit. How many units is being produced? We produced how many? Four 4,800 produced 4,800. Now, so if it is 10 hours per unit, as we can see here, 10 hours per unit, I will produce 4,800 units because it's going to be 48,000 hours that was used. Now, scaled is 40 naira per hour. So we will now multiply by 40 naira. That's on the one hand. Actual hours that was done for scaled is 56,000 hours. So we call it 56,000 hours. Standard rate is still 40. So let's go. 10 hours multiplied by 4,800 multiplied by 40 naira. That gives me 1,920,000. 1,920,000. Now minus, let's do the second one. 56,000 hours multiplied by 40. That gives me 2,240,000. 2,240,000. So what's the variance? This 2,240,000 is going to be minus from 1,920,000. That gives us 320,000 adverts. 320,000 adverts. Okay. Then we go to unskilled, skilled labor. Then what is the standard hours? Standard hours is 10 at 25 naira. So this is still going to be 10 hours times 4,800 times 25 naira minus, because here will be 25 naira. Let's see how many hours the unskilled laborers work. 56,000. 56,000. The same thing. 56,000. 56,000 hours. Still thinking we're still going to get adverse. So we have 10 multiplied by 4,800 multiplied by 25. That gives me 1,200,000. 1,200,000 minus 56,000 hours multiplied by 25. That gives me 1,400,000. Now this is 1,400,000. Plus 200 minus 400 will give us 200,000. So this is going to give us 200,000 adverts. Now we've done skilled and unskilled. This is efficiency variance. So we are going to do this labor. So we are going to do rate variance. Rate variance is going to give us actual hours standard rate minus actual hours actual rate. Right? So we have this skilled labor. Actual hours is 56,000 multiplied by the standard rate. We got it there as 40 naira. That's what we got here. Okay. Now the actual hours, actual rate, just pick that one figure here. This is the amount here. 2,352. 2,352. 2,000,000. 2,352,000. So of course this will still give us 2,352,000. And why we tidy up this one, 56,000 times 40 gives us 2,240,000. 2,240,000. So that's giving us 2,240,000 minus 2,352,000. That gives us 112,000 adverts. 112,000 adverts. So that's it. Then we have done for skills. We are going to go to unskilled labor. We also know that they did 56,000 multiplied by 25 naira minus how many was paid? 1,344. 1,344,000. Because this will still give us 1,344,000. And let's deal with this. 56,000 multiplied by 25 naira. That gives me 1,400,000. So this is 1,400,000 minus 1,344,000. So this is going to give us something favorable now. Minus 1,344,000. So now you have 56,000 favorable. 56,000 favorable. Okay. Now we've done with labor. We are going to go to variable production overhead variances. So we told you that we have efficiency, efficiency, which is still the same thing as standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, standard rate. Okay, so let's see what information we have in variable overhead. Okay, standard hours is 10 hours, just the same with direct labor. So standard hours, we have 10 hours. How many units was produced? 4,800 units. What is the standard rate per hour? 20 naira per hour. So 20 naira. Now, what is the actual hours that was done? Actual hours. Hmm. Actual hours is 56,000 hours. So that is what was done in variable overhead and production direct labor. So 56,000 hours, then the standard rate is 20 naira. Right, so what do we have here? We have 10 multiplied by 4,800 multiplied by 20 naira. That gives us 960. So this is 960,000 minus 56,000 times 20, 1,120 is 1,120,000. It's going to give us an advance. So I'll minus this from 960. We have 160 advance. 160,000 advance. Okay, and we have efficiency, then we have expenditure. Expenditure. Expenditure is going to give me actual hours standard rate minus actual hours actual rate. So actual hours standard rate is what we just did here now, which gave us 1,120,000. Actual hours actual rate gives us 1,064,000. 1,064. 1,064,000. So that's going to give us what? It's going to be favorable 1,120,000 minus 1,064,000. That gives us 56,000 favorable. 56,000 favorable. And I cannot help but look at the other one that we have 56,000 favorable. Hmm. Coincidence? Possibly. And let's check if there's um, fixed overhead. Now there is no fixed overhead. You have calculated all the relevant variances. So you can bring them on the table here. And now come here and say summary of variances. Okay? You can now say direct material. Then under you can say usage material A, usage material B, price material A, price material B. So let's go and get these variances and come. Usage material A, usage material A. Let me just open a second instance of this here. If it is going to open, I don't think it's going to open. Let me just see if it is going to open. I don't think it's going to open it. I don't think it's going to open. So usage We have 360 and 0. 360 is favorable and 0. And let's look at price. Let's check that usage before. Okay, it's adverse. It's adverse and 0. Then material price A and B. Price 210 favorable, 148 adverse. Okay, we're done with direct material. You can come here and say direct labor variances. And now say um, we have efficiency, efficiency, skilled, efficiency, skilled. Then we have expenditure, skilled, expenditure, skilled. Okay, so it's good to just bring down your answers like this. Efficiency 320, adverse 200, adverse 320, 200. Okay, then expenditure, skilled and unskilled. Expenditure, skilled. What did I do? Okay. Oh, sorry, it's not expenditure, it's rate. I'll change it to rate. Variable overhead as expenditure. So this is rate, rate variance, rate, and this is rate. Skill is rate. 112 adverse. It is favorable. 112 adverse. It is favorable. 112 adverse. 6,000 favorable. Okay. Then we have variable production head variances. We have efficiency. We have expenditure. So efficiency is 160 adverse, expenditure 56 favorable. 160 adverse, 60 plus 6 favorable. So these are the variances. So you were also asked to look for the possible causes of the variances computed. So without talking too much, let's go to the answer presented and see what was stated as the possible causes. And we can discuss them together. That's question number 5. Okay. Question number question number 2 also is advanced variance. Let me still see something because we will not go to question number 2. Just wanted to see question number 20. Question number 2 is planning and operational. That's good. That's why we didn't tick it. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so question number 5. So we can compare with what we did with what was done here. There might be a difference. Material price 210 148, 210 148, 300 0, 300 0. Okay, material usage. Okay, they have come to material mix variance. That's advanced, which I will tell you later. I will tell you later. We have labor one labor rate 1126, labor rate 1126, efficiency 310 200, efficiency 210 300. Then we have this mix and yield that they are doing here. Just forget about the mix and yield that they are doing here. Then we have variable overhead. We have 6 favorable, 160 adverse. 6 favorable, 160 adverse. So that's it. Possible causes of variances. Material price variances. So look at material A. Look at material price variance. Material A is adverse. Why could it be adverse? Okay, price, material price, adverse, favorable adverse, favorable variance. Could it be because they bought it cheaper than standard? Could it be that? Let's see. The favorable variance could be effect efficient negotiation is one, lower grade of raw material bought at lower price, which resulted in adverse material usage. So you can see here, it affected it. So this price, because it was a low quality, affected the usage. So you can see interdependence. Possible that because they bought lower quality and make a savings of 210 and they made a loss in usage 320 360. It's possible. And labor efficiency. Affected labor efficiency. If you look at it now, labor efficiency, advance. All these are possible things you need to find out. Material B. In material B, we had price advance. 148. What could happen? Look at um, look at okay, let's look at what it said. Unexpected increase in price. Because if you look at the usage variance is zero. So it was not as if it's not substandard import. They didn't buy substandard. But this could be as a result of increase in price in the market and they still bought the standard but they have to pay a higher price. Or it could be that when they were setting the standard, they used inaccurate standard set, actually the price, standard price. The standard price was wrong. Then material usage variance. Inferior material as noted above. Inexperienced operatives. Because if you look at the labor, they use unskilled labor. And so it could be that they use more unskilled labor than supposed to. So they have usage, got more spoilage. Spoilage was increased. Poor supervision will also be among them. And labor rate, the skilled labor, you see, look at the skilled labor. They are paying these skilled people and maybe they have an advance. Could it be that they pay them more than what they bargained for? It's possible that they paid more than they bargained for. Let's see. The adverse variance, employment of superior skilled laborer paid at a higher rate. Yes, that's one. An unexpected high rate in the market that is paying what more than they bargained for. Then the unskilled labor, we got a favorable variance in unfavorable rates. A favorable rate. Could it be yes, negotiation, fine? Or is it that they went for a lower grade and they pay them lower than what they agreed? So this is what they budgeted for unskilled laborers, and they went to pay them lower than what they agreed. So it means that they went for cheaper labor so that they will save money, and this could have cost them efficiency. Skilled laborer, adverse variance may be due to poor quality of material that they bought, actually material A, and it results in reworking, high rate of reworking. It could be of machine malfunction, poor supervision, power failure. Same thing in the unskilled labor. The variable overheads, all the variable overheads are likely the same reason as labor. So you see here is how they, they did variance. You can put it here, direct material, price variance, the variance among reasons. Do it this way. That is very, very good. Putting it in table format when you're doing your summary like that. So this is a very good way. So you should go back and look at this question, see how it is being done. So that's one of the questions we have treated today. Let's look at another question. It's possible. So we've done question number 5. So this is done. Okay, let's look at number 6. Let's see if we can do number 6. I'm careful not to touch question number 1. Let's look at 2014, question 6, November 2014, question number 6. November 2014, question number 6. All right, so we are told here, so let's write down this question, November 2014, question number 6. I can pass question, November 2014, question number 6. The company's name is Goodland Limited. So we are going to go with Goodland Limited. Okay, and what are we told to do? We are told to prepare a statement that reconciles the budgeted profit with the actual gross profit for the month with a detailed computation of all variances involved. So this is preparation of variances and reconciliation statement of budgeted profit with actual profit. Okay, so that's it. So let's read the question. Goodland Limited produces a and sells a single product. The company adopts a standard cost absorption costing system and absorb overheads on the basis of direct labor hours. Presented below are the cost details and selling price of the product. Now you see here, when we say standard, we're looking at 1 unit. Now look at the selling price for 1 unit, it is 6,000 naira. Direct material, look at the cost for one. Direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead. Now, let's just confirm what is here to be sure that there is no mistakes. 2,700 plus 1,200 plus 600 plus 300. That gives you this 48 here. We have to remove 48 from 6,000. It means that 1,200 is the standard profit, gross profit. It has been estimated that production and sales for the month will be 2,000 units. That is the estimate. However, the estimated production has been used for the basis of for determining the fixed overhead absorption rate. Now, the actual results for the month are as follows. Production unit is 2,800. Sales unit is 24. So 2,400 is the sales, 28 is production, actual production, selling price is this. So what is going to happen here, these are the other things here. So the first thing to do is to prepare the budget and standard statements. So the first thing to do here is profit statement, budget. Okay, so you say sales revenue. How much is our standard selling price? 6,000. 6,000. And how much did we sell? 2,400. So we are going to be using 6,000 multiplied by 2,400 units. So what would that give us? 6,000 multiplied by 2,400. That will give us 14,400,000. That will give us 14,400,000. That's a sales revenue. Then we are going to look at um, production costs. We're going to look at production costs. Okay, production costs. We're going to take a little shortcut. Production costs. Now, standard, we had how many? 4,800. 4,800 is the price for one. 4,800. Okay, 4,800. So you say 4,800 multiplied by how many was produced? Actually, 2,800. So 2,800. So what do we do? 4,800 multiplied by 2,800. That gives me 13,440. So that will give me 13,440. Then I'll need to look at closing stock. Closing stock, meaning that we produce actually 2,800 while we sold 2,004. It then means that our closing stock is going to be how many? 400. 400 multiplied by 2,800. Sorry, multiplied by 4,800. 4,800. 4,800. Need to put the naira sign. 4,800. So what is it going to be now? 400 times 4,800. That gives me 1,920,000. 1,920,000. That's my line, crooked. So your cost of sales, this will now be, what am I doing? Okay, I'm going to minus this from 1 million, get 30,440,000. That gives me 11,520. So this will be 11,520. Cost of sale is something that is still less. Lines seem to be crooked. All right, so this 11,520, I'm going to less it from 14,400. So your profit is 2,880. 2,880. So this is your budgeted profit. So that's it. We will now do another statement for actuals. So profit statement, actual. Okay, so you will start with your sales revenue. How much did we sell? This is the price, 6,120. 6,120. Sold 24 at 6,120. 2,400 at 6,120. That's our sales revenue. 24 multiplied by 6,120. That gives me 14,688. All right. So we want to get our cost of sales. We don't have any opening stock. So what we only have is production. Production. We have direct material, direct. We now have direct material. Let's look at it. Direct material. Direct material happens to be 88,000 times 120. 88,000 times 120. How much would that give me? 88,000 times 120. That gives me 10,560,000. 10,560,000. 10,560,000. Then we have direct labor. Direct labor is 21,000 times 150. 21,000 times 150. 21,000 times 150. 21,000 times 150. How much is that? 21,000 times 150. That gives me 3,150,000. Right? So the next one is variable overhead 660, fixed overhead 360. Variable is 660, fixed is 360. 660, 360. So this is variable production overhead. This is fixed production overhead. So when we add that, this in question, let me see what's happening. Someone is saying, can I explain budget statement again? I will explain it again. Let me finish this calculation. We have this figure here, so I will leave it. I'll simply add it to 10,560 plus 660 plus 360. That gives me 14,730. 14,730. Now, before I go to budget statement, let me just finish the closing stock. Now, this is closing stock. Now, if we notice here that all of these things we did in production, we are told actual production was 2.8, right? But our sales was 2.4, meaning that everything we produced, we didn't sell them. So we are going to remove that 400 we didn't sell. So our closing stock is going to be 400 multiplied by, we said before, we are going to be using standard standard cost. When we are using standard, we are going to use standard cost, not actual costs, because our closing stock, we remember, it was standard costing. If we were to be using actual, all we would have just done is divide this by 2008 and multiply by 400. But no, we're going to be using standard cost 4,800. 4,800. So what we got there when we did it before? 1920. 1920. So I'm going to come here. 1920. And that's going to be my closing stock. So when I remove this, 1 minus 1920, I'm getting 12,810. So this is 12,810. So this is my cost of sales. So my actual profit will then be this. So this cost of sale we've gotten here. We're going to remove it from 14,688,000. That gives me 11878. All right, we have gotten our actual profits. Now somebody is asking me I should explain standard budget. It's the same thing we did in actual budget that we did in standard. The only thing is that we use standard prices as standard things. We are told in our standard that 600 is the selling price. That's what we used. And we use actual units produced, the actual units sold. So if you look at this is actual units, this is actual units. We would have also done budgeted units. We would have done budgeted, because, okay, that is budget for standard. So this is the estimated. We are supposed to use 2,000 units of profit. So what we just did now was flex budget. What we just did now, first one, flex budget, flex, right? Then this is actual. You want to do your fixed budget. This is, okay, let me write budget, budget statement, fixed. It's not that much to do. All we need to do is just to bring the quantity multiplied by the profit, the gross profit. Because all we plan to sell, we plan to produce 2,000 and we plan to sell 2,000. So all we plan to produce is all we plan to sell. No opening stock, no closing stock. So we would have as well use this 1,200. So we use this 1,200 as the profit. Quantity is 2,000 units multiplied by 1,200. So your profit here, which is 2,000 multiplied by 1,200, is going to give me 2,400,000. So this is 2,400,000. All right. Then we have not we are done with the budget statements. Now let's look at the variances. So as we are saying, the budget, somebody is still asking what's the difference. Now, the first one was fixed budget. The fixed was for 2,000 units. This is the one we would have done first. 2,000 units was budgeted. So normally 6,000 times 2,000 will give us a figure. All your direct material, you will say 2,700 per unit times 2,000 will give you a figure. Direct labor 1,200 per unit times 2,000 will give you a figure, like that, like that. And you will now less it. So, but instead of going through all that process, since this 2,000 is going to be produced and sold, no closing stock, instead of doing all that, just take the profit, 1,002 is your standard, and multiply by 200. We would have done that for budget for the flex budget, if we would have done that had it been what was produced was also the same as what was sold. But because what was produced was not the same as what was sold, we had to do sales, which is 2,4, and we just come for production. We take this 4,8 instead of doing them one by one. Just take this 4,8 because normally we will say 2,7 multiplied by 2,8, 1,2 multiplied by 2,8, 600 multiplied by 2,8, 300 multiplied by 2,8. So the common thing here is 2,8. We would have just multiply this straight with 4,8, and that is what we did here to get our cost for producing 2,800. But we need to remove the closing stock so that we'll be comparing 2,4 with 2,4. So this is our closing stock. And now this cost of sales represents what does it cost us to produce these 2,4 units that we sold. So the budgeted profit is 2,880. Did you see that the original profit was 2,4 we budgeted, but when we now flexed it, it became 2,880. We now did the actual statement. The actual statement is the actual things, and we got 1,878. Now the next thing to do is to do our to do our variances. So I will start with to use a different color variances. Let's say this is our variances. All right. So what are our variances? We have direct material. Okay, I can start with sales price. Let's do sales price variance. So I can say sales price variance. So I'll say actual quantity sold, standard, okay, actual price minus standard price. Actual quantity sold is 2,400. Actual price 6,120. My memory serves me right. 6,120. Standard price is 6,000. Standard price is 6,000. That will give me 2,400 multiplied by 6,120 minus 6,000. That will give me 120. That was a no-brainer. 120. So that will give me 120 multiplied by 2,400. That will give me 288,000 favorable. 288,000 favorable. Okay. Then we do sales volume variance. And so because this was gross profit, we didn't we are not going to be using contribution, we are going to be using profit margin. So we have standard profit margin, standard profits multiplied by actual quantity minus standard quantity. Our standard profit here happens to be 1,200. Actual quantity sold is 2,400. Standard quantity sold is 2,000. So that gives us, so this is the 1,200 I'm talking about. This is the 2,400 that was sold. This is the 2 that was budgeted. So 2,400 minus 2,000, that will give me 400. So this is 1, 2 multiplied by 400, which gives me what? 400 times 1, 2. That will give me 480 favorable. 480 favorable. Okay. Now we've done sales. Let's go to costs. Direct material cost variances. Okay, so we have usage variance, which is standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, standard price. Okay, what's our standard quantity? Standard quantity 30 liters, 30 liters. So this is 30 liters. What was the actual production? Actual production was 2,800. Actual production was 1,800. Standard price is 90. 90. Then actual quantity of direct material, actual quantity 88,000 liters. Actual quantity is 88,000 liters. 88,000. Standard price is 90. Okay, so this will be 30 multiplied by 28 multiplied by 90. That will give me 7,560,000. 7,560,000 minus 88,000 multiplied by 90. 7,920,000. So this 7,920,000, I'm going to remove it from 7,560,000. That gives me 360 advance. 360 advance. That's usage. Then we have price variance. Your price variance is going to give me actual quantity. Did I say hours? Okay. Actual quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. Then the actual quantity standard price is what we just calculate. 7,920,000 minus actual quantity, actual price. Actual quantity, actual price. So 88,000 times 120. So you say 88,000 times 120. So this will still give us 7,920 minus 88,000 multiplied by 120. That gives me 10,560,000. So if I take away 10,560,000 from 7,920,000, I am getting 2,640,000. 2,640,000 advance. That's the price variance. I'm done with materials. I'm going to direct labor. Direct labor variances. I can come here and I will have my efficiency variance, which is standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, standard rates. So what's the standard hours? Standard hours is 10 hours per unit. Okay, this one to this side. So this is 10 hours per unit, and we produced 2,800 units multiplied by standard rate. Standard rate per hour is 120. 120 per hour. So this is 120. Then the actual hours. What is the actual hours used? 21,000 hours. So we use 21,000 hours. Standard rate is 120. So this will give me 10 times 28 times 120. That gives me 3,360,000. 3,360,000 minus 21,000 multiplied by 120. That gives me 2,520,000. 2,520,000. 2,520,000. So eventually, it's going to give us something favorable. So if I take this away from 3,360,000, I'm getting 840 favorable. So this is 840 40,000 favorable. Then we have direct labor rate variance. Rate variance is actual hours standard rate minus actual hours actual rate. So the actual hour standard rate is what we just calculated as 2,520,000. So this is 2,520,000 minus actual hours actual rate. Actual hours 21 at 150. 21,000 at 150. So this will still give me 2,520,000 minus 21,000 times 150. That gives me 3,150,000. 3,150,000. So to give me an adverse, so if I take away this from 2,520,000, that gives me 630 adverse. 630 adverse. Then we're done with direct labor. So we go to variable production overhead variance. Okay, so what do? We have efficiency, efficiency variance. Same thing as that of labor. We have standard hours standard rate minus actual hours standard rate. By now, you should be familiar with standard, standard hours, actual hours, all of these, you're familiar with that. Standard hours is 10 hours, standard rate 60 naira, 10 and 60. 10 hours, we produce 2,860 naira. Actual hours, we had 21,000, standard rate is 60. So what we have here is 10 multiplied by 28 multiplied by 60. That gives me 1680. 1680 minus 21,000 multiplied by 60, 1260. Right? If I take away 1260 from 1680, that gives me 420 favorable. 420,000 favorable. Efficiency variance. Then this production overhead. So the round one will be expenditure variance. Expenditure variance. It will now be actual as standard rate minus actual as actual rate. Actual hour standard rate, we just calculated it here, 1260, 1260. Actual hours, actual rate, variable overhead, actual hours, actual rate is 660. 660. We have 660. Okay, so 1260 minus 660, 600,000 favorable. 600,000 favorable. All right, we've done that of variable overhead. So the next one is fixed production overhead variances. Right, so what do we do now? We'll start with efficiency. We have efficiency variance. It's going to be standard as standard rate minus actual as standard rate. Just the same formula we had in efficiency. Right? So standard hours is 10 hours. We produce 2,800. Standard rate for fixed overhead, calculated it as 30 naira. So we use the 30. Then actual hours 21,000. Standard rate is 30. Because we have 10 multiplied by 2,800 multiplied by 30, 840. So this is 840,000, 21,000 times 30, 630, 630,000. So if you take away this from 840,000, we are having, sorry, 840,000 minus 630,000, we have 210,000 favorable. 210,000 favorable. That's efficiency. Between efficiency and expenditure, we have capacity variance. Capacity variance is actual hours standard rate minus budgeted hours standard rate. The actual hours happen to be, okay, we've done actual hours standard rate here. No need trying to work it out again. 630 All right. What is your budgeted hours? Okay. Your budgeted hours should be 10 hours for one unit multiplied by 2,000 that you budgeted, then multiplied by the standard rate, 30 naira. So this will give me 630 minus 10 times 2,000 multiplied by 30. That gives me 600,000. 600,000. So if we are to find it out, it's going to give me 30,000 favorable. That's your capacity variance. Then the next one should be expenditure variance. Expenditure variance. Now, it's going to be budgeted hours standard rate minus actual hours actual rate. And our budgeted hour standard rate was given, we have done that, that's 600,000. Then our actual is crooked, 600,000. Okay, 600,000 minus actual hours actual rate was given to us here, 360. 360. So that will give us how much? 600 minus 360. That will give us 240 favorable. 240,000 favorable. Okay, now that we've calculated all our variances, the next thing to do is to prepare your profit, your reconciliation statement. I'm going to use this to prepare the reconciliation statement. I will say, let me call it profit reconciliation statement. Profit reconciliation statement. And you say this is budgeted profit. Our budgeted profit is how much? Budgeted profit. So we'll go back and check how much we calculate as our budgeted profit. 2,400,000. That's 2,400,000. Okay. Then we will bring our sales price variance. Our sales price variance is 288. Sales volume is 480. 288, 480, all favorable. 288 and 480. So this is sales volume variance. Add this 288,000 plus 480. That gives me 768. 768,000. I will now add it since they are all favorable. 768 plus 240. 2,400,000. 3,168,000. 3,168,000. I'll come here and I'll put here and decide to put favorable here and put my adverse here. So I'll be bringing them down here and be writing. So this is direct material usage variance. This is direct material price variance. Let me see if I can pick the two. Price usage and usage is 360 adverse, 360, 2640. Both adverse, 360, 2640. All right, so I will now go to labor, direct labor efficiency variance, direct labor rate variance. Let me see if I can pick the two. Efficiency 840 favorable, rate 630. 840 is favorable, 630 is adverse. 840, 630. Right? Then we now have variable production overhead efficiency. Then we have like variance. Then we have variable production overhead expenditure variance. Okay, so efficiency and expenditure variable overhead. Efficiency is 420, expenditure is 600. 420, 600, all favorable. Alright, so we now have the fixed production overhead efficiency variance, fixed production overhead capacity variance, and fixed production overhead expenditure variance. Let's see if we can pick these three. Efficiency is 210 favorable, 30 favorable, 240, 210, 30, 240. All right, so we add this and add this. So let's see. Let's add with our fingers crossed. 840 plus 420 plus 600 plus 210 plus 30 plus 240. 2,340. 2,340. This is what you get here. And let's come here. We have 360. Then we have 2,640. Then we have 630. That's all. 3,630,000. All right. So we have to take away this from 2,340,000. We are getting 1,290,000. 1,290,000. So I'll put it here. 1,290,000. That's in brackets. Then if we are to take it away from this, 3,168,000. Keep your finger crossed. 1,878,000. 1,878,000. 1,878,000. And this is supposed to be our actual profit. Let's keep our fingers crossed if that's what we got as our actual profit. Let's see. One million 878,000. That's your actual profit. And that, my good friends, is how you do your reconciliation. Maybe you should give me a round of applause, right? Okay. So far, so good. We have taken a dive on this particular question. This is question number 2014. Question number what again? Question number 6. So we have just solved this. Wow, what a lengthy question. But if you know the principles, if you know what you are doing, and most important, if you know your formulas. Formula in variance analysis is everything. It's everything. When you know your formula and you know how to apply them, you are going to get your various analysis questions. Even if you don't get 100%, you are going to get minimum 80%. So far, we've solved two questions, two questions on variance analysis in our part 4. Okay, so please go ahead and practice these other ones. They are not that difficult. They are not that difficult. Even the question number one, two, question number one we left out, and the question number two, you still have to do them yourself. Let's see how we can make out time to deal with them. In our next class, we are going to go into advanced variance. And let's see how get a taste of advanced variance and see what we can glean from that. So it has been a very, very fruitful and beautiful day in our class today. Okay, so take your time again to go through this video and see how you can understand what you've solved here and use it as a way to solve other questions in the study pack. So thank you so much for taking out this time, and I'll be saying my good night. Thank you so much. See you in our next class.